Awakening in a post-traumatic stress world. At this time, the whole world is being stressed to the maximum levels. Many are struggling financially, while others are facing large amounts of uncertainty. To say we are all suffering from a bit of post-traumatic stress would be an understatement. While I do not feel post-traumatic stress is a disorder, I do think that it is something that many of us struggle to manage. However, we were never taught how to manage or heal from that stress in healthy ways, hence the PTSD label. I hope to pass on some insights to help people in these times of stressful change. I have lately witnessed many instances of people facing the stresses of life and failing miserably. I, for one, have made my own failures, which is why I think it's essential to share my insights. I have personally found it challenging to communicate with people about specific topics, especially when they believe something entirely different. Today, the news is telling people so much contradictory information, it becomes a challenge to sort through the real truth and then have an intelligent conversation about it. I am reminded of the quote, "Knowing enough to think you are right, but not know enough to know that you are wrong." Neil deGrasse Tyson. However, I feel the only true wisdom is knowing that you know nothing. Socrates. We are facing this as a collective in our society right now with what is occurring in the world. We are facing global uprising that cannot in any way be blamed on our current administration, despite their apparent failures. Despite any disagreements that may be valid, this is a problem that we are facing on a global scale. To say one man is responsible is both ignorant and irresponsible. Again, this is a time to use incredible discernment and not to listen to anyone or company that has repeatedly been caught lying, without ourselves checking the facts. We need to hold all leaders more accountable, but we need to be able to discuss the facts, not silence the opposition. The strive for accountability is good, but not when it erodes our fundamental human rights. I think that it is a scary time when people are at a point that they will openly call for freedom of speech to be destroyed because they disagree with somebody. I am reminded of a line from probably the most critical speech in the movie for V Vendetta. "I know why you did it. I know why you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, and disease, there were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you, and in your panic, you now turn to the now High Chancellor, Twitter, Fact Check, YouTube, and Facebook for answers. We have already allowed ourselves to be corrupted by fear and panic. The calls for censorship are only the most recent sign of our inability to cope with the trauma. However, I think that if we allow our president to be censored, we will have zero chance of preventing censorship in the future. We must protect that which is most important and do it in a healthy way. Calling for censorship is a far cry from calling for the truth to be revealed. If people are calling out the lies versus calling for censorship, I would be more willing to listen to the people who are calling people liars. I've researched many people who say many things, and I feel that all of those people have a right to their own beliefs. I don't have to agree. In fact, many times I don't. However, if we don't allow people to offer a different perspective, we may as well be living in communist China. Do we want the facts to be silenced when they disagree with the people running social media? Do we want corruption to be able to silence the opposition? Why can't we discuss the facts openly? Today, I'm witnessing people behave in such utterly unhealthy ways as a reaction to real injustice. While I can't deny the tragedy of the most recent event that occurred, it doesn't give people the right to destroy the lives of other people. Wrongs don't right wrongs. We are witnessing lives being destroyed in ways that we still can't comprehend. This is worldwide, as we are seeing in countries that are listening to the shutdown order and countries that didn't. How impressive the numbers appear when compared, death rates are lower in countries that didn't shut down. However, those facts are not being discussed openly. Why is that? Even fact-check sites are trying to make this issue more complicated than it is while forcing people to remove content that disagrees with their narrative. Rather than face things with the facts, we are seeing possible facts being censored because they challenge a story that is being promoted. I have to speak up for this, as freedom of speech is something I highly value as a writer. Instead, I see the media promoting all the worst and most destructive ways of thinking. I actually support their right to do this. I support their right to create all the fear porn they want. I don't agree with their perspective most of the time, but I support their right to state their viewpoint. I don't think that even their fear porn should be censored, despite all the harm it is clearly causing. I feel people should have the right to speak out against that fear porn too, without the media claiming conspiracy theory, as many conspiracies are now facts. I don't agree with the media saying that the protesters are killing people because they are failing social distancing, but they have the right to make those claims. If those claims turn out to be untrue, we should have the ability and forum to call them out for false reporting. I can't support the blatant promoting of riots through social media, but I also don't feel we should be censoring people that are calling for peaceful protests. We have rights, and we should be defending those rights right now, not worrying about social distancing, which I've discovered doesn't have much supporting science to prove it works. Don't believe me? Do your own research, because ultimately, I don't want to live in a world like V for Vendetta. I don't want corporations or governments to have the right to censor the information that people want to discuss, especially if the information is not hurting or causing harm to others. Discussing ideas is only dangerous to the people who want to control what you believe, hence why they must use censorship right now. A real discussion of the topics would quickly reveal the truth, or at least start pointing people towards the truth. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusion destroyed. Nietzsche. I'm not even trying to promote any side as truth, only that we should start having discussions versus continuing with insults and attacks. We are seeing our world being destroyed, and that is putting everyone in a state of post-traumatic stress, causing more disorder. Hence the horrendous reactions we see to these issues. People aren't acting with a level head, and when we are pushed to the brink, people will do whatever they think is okay to set their lives right. This means stealing, manipulating, lying, cheating, or possibly worse to ensure one's survival, or more so, the survival of their family. Considering most people are being forced into a fight or flight mentality as the economy starts to crumble and job losses reach unprecedented levels, we shouldn't be surprised when people act irrationally. I find this is a big reason the riots are catching fire. Pun intended. I'm not saying that this behavior is acceptable. I ask people to stop such behavior immediately and to refrain from such actions that would cause harm to another person. I wish that we weren't being faced with such unprecedented destruction to the old world, but we must understand that the problems if we are to overcome them. I think we need to know how traumatizing this situation has been to so many people and have a level of compassion. Having compassion does not mean allowing your child to throw a destructive tantrum. This would be utterly irresponsible parenting. Having compassion would be recognizing the problem, not tolerating such harmful behavior, and encouraging more productive behavior. There are many different ways to get to that goal too, and each child will likely have a different method that works. This is why we must understand that we need to start focusing on the problems on a local level. Stop thinking the government is actually going to fix all the issues that they have created. It will take communities uniting to overcome the challenges we currently face. When we come together, there is nothing that can stop us. However, if we continue to remain divided, we will continue to fail. The media is currently doing everything it can to keep people in a blind rage or a perpetual state of fear and separation. Science even shows that people don't reason when blinded by rage or fear. Hence the big problem of T derangement syndrome. A real scary situation when people won't even discuss the topics and would rather be deranged Hulk monsters full of such intense hatred towards the most hated person in history. It is an interesting phenomenon. Living in Sedona, I find it almost entertaining how many spiritually enlightened individuals suffer from President T derangement syndrome. As I explain it, it is a blind hatred that requires them to name call, condescend, or accost anyone who doesn't suffer from their derangement. It is insane to hear their hate-filled words come from someone who pretends to be love and light. It is obvious the pretenders as I see the way they discuss our president. With no respect, a complete tone of anger, and no personal investigation to back it up. I've discovered most have never even watched a President T speech, or actually read any of his tweets. Instead, they believe the information taken out of context as truth and disregard anything that may be positive, wishing ill on even the country. I've witnessed it to the point that these people want the country to fail simply so that they can be right about what they believe. It is deranged to say the least. The deranged masses only read the information that the fake media wants them to see, failing to ever investigate further. I changed my perspective after doing a lot of my own research. Don't get me wrong, I think President T is a misogynist, could be more politically correct and even less rude, but despite that, I've discovered he is honest in the way he speaks. I respect him for that. I don't agree with everything he says, and I think that's fine. We all don't have to agree with each other, but we can get along. We would all be better to remember that. I would say most politicians are misogynists, and most are far worse than the big T guy. When you look into the P-Gate scandal, most people would be knocked off their pedestal hilariously by oh bummers crimes. Those crimes those three people committed should make most sane people call for capital punishment. It isn't right to hurt people, especially when it involves practices I won't even discuss here. I encourage people to do their own research into the P-Gate scandal. I recently had my own experience with my own mild derangement syndrome. I was debating the topic of Bentinho Massaro, who was kicked out of Sedona behaving inappropriately around a colossal tragedy. I am personally angry about the way he handled the situation, in the way he responded after, and how he acted during the police investigation. My frustrations were compounded with his reputation around town. His reputation was terrible among the community that had not joined his cult. I am upset because I feel he is hurting people through his actions, and any real investigation would reveal this to most people. I have no reason to believe that he has changed either. The problem is that while he was in town, I had at least 7 people report negative interactions while also observing poor behavior from his minions. I didn't see him as a spiritual guru if he continued to expand his lousy reputation around town. Again, I don't want to get into the details as it really isn't essential to the issue. And I could probably write another 6-page paper about what problems I have actually with his actions. The point being is that I feel I know enough to believe I am right about this topic, but not enough to communicate those frustrations properly. The knowledge I had gave me enough ammunition to think I was right in telling people about the dangers. However, it often never led to the outcome that I wanted. My anger usually made me out to be the bad guy. It sucks when you are trying to help people or protect people, but because you are challenging their perceptions, I will usually end up being made out to be the bad guy. So many times I've ended up the bad guy because I couldn't control my anger towards the situation. I was right in my anger, but I was wrong in my delivery. Now recently, someone again inquired about my feelings about Bentinho Massaro. I told them that I felt he was a dangerous and he perverted many teachings I personally supported. So much of what he discusses I agree with, but it is the way he behaves towards others that really rubs me the wrong way. Combined with the wealth of information I have uncovered myself through online research, it would take a new pile of evidence to convince me that this person in question had made a change. However, this person repeatedly tried to defend him, cutting me off every time I tried to explain myself. I was clearly challenging her perspective, but didn't expect such harsh attacks in return. On 2 occasions, she tried to accuse my examples as irrelevant, being very condescending in the way she was taking in the information. I finally asked for this person to allow me to finish my thoughts, at which point she still tried to defend her position again. I had to ask her to stop interrupting assertively. Otherwise, I didn't feel there was any point to continuing. I was recognizing that she wasn't ready to listen to another truth, making her very defensive. Eventually, I did get her to finally understand my point of view after many attempts to do so. Still, she wanted to explain her side of the story and why he wasn't so bad. Sadly, after an hour of trying to explain myself, I wasn't in the mood to debate the topic she wasn't ready to discuss. If she had read the articles I read, had other experiences to expand on with new insights to debate, maybe, and I mean perhaps, I could have continued the discussion. But my wits were done, and my ability to remain calm around the subject was no longer a possibility with the way she wanted to keep defending Bentinho. I excused myself for the night, as I didn't want to talk to anyone else. It was probably for the best, as everyone needed to avoid me too. I didn't expect that night I would be faced with the challenges around that topic, but it was a trigger point for me. I knew I had failed, but I just see that as an opportunity to grow. I have spent much time debating what it was that was so upsetting and why I can't just let it all go. The most significant part is if I feel someone is dangerous to others, it is my opportunity to do something about it, because evil wins when good people do nothing. In hindsight, I see where I could have made some adjustments to the way I convey my anger towards his behavior. I didn't think to explain to this girl that it does not matter how many good experiences you have had with the spiritual guru. I look at all of someone's actions, and if he is through his continued efforts perverting perfectly beautiful teachings, Considering most people before their arrest loved Manson and Bundy, we should really reevaluate the way we judge character. Being kind and charismatic does not hide despicable behavior to those who are perceptive. The challenge comes with how do we face off against this despicable behavior? Too often the hero becomes the villain, and here is why. In a world full of vile acts, it is easy to become the bad guy. Due to our inabilities to handle the stresses of life, it becomes even more challenging to face off against the darkness. I see people growing aware of the darkness in our world at an unprecedented pace. Many are ending up with post-traumatic stress just from learning about the horrors of the world. I know I had my own moments over the past decade while doing my own research. I have had to change my views on many subjects, and I continue to improve my beliefs as my understanding grows. Honestly, I used to think organic was the best food to eat until someone schooled me about the fact that organic foods are sprayed with just as much, if not more, organic pesticides. It woke me up, and I've since changed to supporting mostly local, sustainable farms which can't afford the $50,000 organic label. I feel it does not do me much good to support companies that wish to poison people through GMOs or spraying secretly. I've changed the way I act and purchase based on many of my own discoveries. I encourage people to show their support through conscious purchasing and supporting local. That is one way I can promote a positive change to problems I feel the world faces. Encouragement is the key, and also never use shaming. If you are awake, it is difficult not to feel like people should feel ashamed for being asleep. However, that attitude alone is the biggest reason people are remaining asleep. We are taught and honestly conditioned to avoid things that make us feel out of our comfort zone. Waking up is a massive move out of the comfort zone. It causes many people to freak out. I'm still freaking out as I wake up to the horrors going on currently in our world. It is honestly the most interesting time to be alive. Now we are facing waking up as a planet. The amount of freaking out is at an all-time high, and we are not handling it well. Suicides are up, and we are as a society should feel more responsible for the way our actions are negatively impacting people's lives. I also think a worldwide event was inevitable, as I believe it is bringing awareness that all our systems are fundamentally broken. I could write another paper each about our broken educational, medical, and political systems. These all anger me, and how I communicate those frustrations is the key. I could easily start to condemn people for not thinking the way I do. It would be simple to make people feel wrong about supporting companies or politicians who intentionally hurt people. However, as I've learned, most people won't hear a word if I talk down to them. Honestly, most people will shut down as soon as I start to get upset with them. Their defenses go up and they enter a fight or flight mode. As their defenses would go up, that would trigger my own defensiveness. Ultimately, I would never change their mind, and then they would consider me the bad guy in the end because I yelled and got mad at them. This action they feel I took against them would be able to discredit anything I discussed. This is also why people will attack you when you challenge their point of view. If they can get you to show that you are a bad person or someone that they don't feel they should listen to, then they can discredit everything you said. I've had this happen more times than I can count. My challenge is to always remain calm, and that is still challenging to me. I recognize now when I should leave a situation or conversation, but I still have my moments that I can't control the emotions. How I express my emotions is the most critical part of how I strive to be a better person. My goal is to be able to communicate with someone about something I'm angry about, but in a way that does not stress or hurt the other person. I hope to communicate in a calm, cool, and collected manner to keep the dialogue open. The last thing I want is for someone to shut down because I am too intense. I have had to embrace tobacco and MMJ as a tool to keep my anxiety and emotional outbursts in check. My other tools to express anger are through writing, making organite, and without a doubt, dancing. I feel writing is the best way to communicate feelings that I have a hard time discussing in person. Making organite is battling all the things that make me angry while also joyfully expressing my creativity. Dancing is a fantastic way to express my emotions creatively. I find I can leave my anger on the dance floor and it will not negatively impact anyone. Lastly, I find most people actually enjoy watching me dance it off. After a night of dancing, I could talk about almost anything that makes me angry without ever getting overly emotional. This is the place I feel more of us should be striving to achieve. We need to recognize when we are in an area that does not allow us to communicate with others productively. As much as we want to help others, We don't help others when we fail to communicate appropriately. Failure to communicate can also be not saying what needs to be said. As I personally don't really have that problem, I wanted to at least mention it. The failure of people to communicate problems with each other is the fundamental issue I hope to address in this article. I am reminding that evil wins when good people do nothing, and we must be able to face the evil in productive ways. We must understand that this is going to be a process of awakening while simultaneously removing evils on this planet. It is going to take time for people to go through the stages of the anger process. It won't be easy, but we can make it easier for everyone. The best way to make it easier on everyone is to simply put your own mask on first before assisting others. If you can't stay calm while trying to wake people up, then I suggest you learn. If you can't keep your post-traumatic stress in control, I recommend learning skills that help you. This is the challenge we all face, to first help ourselves so that we can meet evil with the highest level of good we can. The last thing I want is for the world to wake up to the satanic pedophiles running the planet and then start lynching people and hanging them in the streets. I'd be happy to see those people in jail, but never excited to see it handled by public rage. There is always a better way to do things. The moment we stop believing there is a better way is the moment we make our biggest mistake. I have found that there are many ways to bring awareness to the problems of the planet. Some people create beautiful conscious art, while some organize protests and even create civil disobedience to inspire change. My most significant point is there isn't a wrong way to wake people up if you do it intending to harm no one. Still, some methods work better than others. I don't recommend ever talking from a pedestal that you are better than others, shaming or being outright condescending towards those who don't know your truth yet. Destroying private property is the worst form of acting out. We need to rise and say that behavior that hurts others is wrong. We all need to stand up for what's right. And for each country, state, and city, this might be different. Allow people to make up their own mind and always be open to other possibilities, as I feel truth may change. I've learned that even truth has deeper truths, as many of my truths have evolved throughout my own life. In these hashtag COVID-19 times, I think it's essential to do the self-work required to help others. We are being forced to take a look inside at ourselves. We must do the work on ourselves so that we can be the most service to others. As those who are most awake want nothing more than to wake up the masses. We must take self-action. We must embrace the change in ourselves as we learn new ways to communicate. If those concerns and emotions aren't communicated in a way that people will hear, then I feel that we are making mistakes. However, I feel those mistakes are there to help us grow and to help us learn. I've learned many ways that don't work. In fact, in my experience, if I try to convince people beyond their capacity to change their view, they will often ostracize me. I was practically excommunicated from my family a decade ago for this very behavior. The point is that telling people how to live doesn't work. I have to wake people up who are ready. I have to put the information out there for people who want to hear it. I've had to adopt the 10% rule of sharing a small bit of information with people. We must allow those people the opportunity to engage then or disengage. Finally, when people are finished, to respect them by not getting offended if they aren't ready for more information. Understanding that I am not trying to force a view on anyone, but just trying to share my perspective. Sharing and allowing is such a vital part of the awakening process. We must avoid sharing the feelings in ways that cause others to shut down. I can express how upset I am with how our politicians are handling the global pandemic, or I can show how there are better ways to do things. I can rise above the problem and start to focus on the solutions. When we are in fight or flight mode, it's often hard to see those answers. It's easy to focus on the problem, which just puts more stress on people. However, we must also understand the problem to have a chance of implementing the solution. Implementing change is the challenge we face as a planet. Except how do we apply solutions while also bringing awareness to the problems? I feel that we all have a piece to bring to the solution, which is why each and every person on the planet is important right now. Discovering how to deal with the evils of the world and then how to transcend those evils is the greatest gift you can give to the planet. We all have a gift to share with the world. Discover your gift by looking inside and finding peace in the darkness, in approaching the problems from ever higher places. We will bring a new renaissance to planet Earth. Thank you for listening to Interesting Articles for Interested People. Join me every first and third Monday for a brand new original article. Subscribe on Patreon to gain early access. Written and audio versions will be available for early release. The previous articles will be published publicly with a Pomeranian video each time a new article is released. Articles are written to share experiences and lessons with the world. Thank you for your time, and please share, like, and subscribe to read or hear more. Again, you can find early access on Patreon by subscribing to Interesting Articles for Interested People for $5 per month. Thank you again.